Famous for their cunning and mysterious nature, few would imagine that nearly 8 million foxes are exploited every year to become luxurious fur coats, sustaining a multi-billion-dollar fashion industry. But how did humans manage to tame and exploit one of the most intelligent, alert, and elusive animals in nature? From the frozen steppes of Siberia to the blazing deserts of the Sahara, and now to industrial farms, foxes have become the second largest source of fur in the world, only after minks. Starting as tiny, fragile creatures, they grow up with their precious, thick coats, only to be drawn into the relentless cycle of the high-end fashion world. Today, join Agriculture Insight as we uncover the journey of this remarkable animal and the untold secrets behind the extravagant fur industry. Everything will be revealed right in this video. In popular culture, the fox has always been a creature of many faces. From the cunning trickster in Aesop's fable, The Fox and the Sour Grapes, to the mystical nine-tailed fox spirits of Chinese legends, this animal embodies both intelligence and mystery, a symbol of charm and deception intertwined. In the natural world, there are 37 known species of foxes, found almost everywhere except Antarctica. The most prominent is the red fox, with its thick, reddish-brown fur, compact body, and remarkable adaptability, thriving in icy taiga forests, arid deserts, and even bustling urban cities. Meanwhile, the Arctic fox, with its pristine white coat that changes color with the seasons, is a true master of camouflage in the harsh, frozen wilderness. Yet, it is precisely this natural beauty that has placed foxes at the heart of a luxury industry. Today, 70–80% of fox fur on the global market comes from industrial farms in China and Russia, while the rest is sourced from wild trapping in Canada, the US, and Northern Europe. To make just one high-end fox fur coat, at least 10 to 20 pelts are required, costing anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000. Prestigious fashion houses such as Fendi, Louis Vuitton, and Dior continue to feature fox fur in their luxury collections, despite growing backlash from animal rights organizations. But that's only one side of the story. Now, let's step into the world of the fox, where instinct, intelligence, and untold secrets await discovery. Each year, as winter approaches, the survival instincts of foxes awaken, marking the beginning of the mating season, the most important phase in their life cycle. Foxes are known for their monogamous nature, with a male and female often bonding to raise their young together. But before that comes a competitive journey to find a mate, where males roam vast areas, searching for pheromone traces left by females in heat. Once he detects this biological invitation, the male begins to court her by chasing, nuzzling, or offering food, a way to test instinctive compatibility. During this time, both foxes become more aggressive, emitting distinct vocalizations and releasing strong scents that signal reproductive readiness. The mating process can last for hours and requires great energy. Interestingly, male foxes produce sperm only during the mating season, while females ovulate for just about 1 week each year, making their reproductive window extremely short, a moment both urgent and sacred in their wild journey to preserve life. After mating, the female fox begins preparing a special den, known as a maternity den, to raise her soon-to-be-born cubs. Unlike many other mammals, foxes do not use dens for daily shelter, but only dig them during the birthing season. The den is usually located in a quiet, hidden area with elevated, dry terrain and a narrow entrance to protect against predators. The gestation period of a fox is relatively short, about 45 to 50 days. When the time comes, the female retreats into the den, rarely leaving and becoming extremely cautious. Each litter typically consists of 4 to 6 pups, though it can range from 1 to 11, depending on the species and environment. The newborn cubs are blind, deaf, and entirely dependent on their mother for the first few weeks. During this time, the male fox provides food, while the female stays inside, nursing and keeping the cubs warm. At around 4 to 5 weeks old, the pups tap eyes fully open, their fur thickens, and they begin to explore outside the den under their mother's watch, learning to hunt and develop survival instincts. By 6 months of age, young foxes start living independently, stepping into the wild world where a single misstep could turn them into prey for hunters or the unseen traps that await. Each year, around 1 million foxes are hunted worldwide for their fur, pest control, or to protect native ecosystems. To capture such a cunning creature, hunters must deeply understand its behavior and biological rhythm. Foxes are nocturnal, equipped with sharp hearing and keen survival instincts, usually leaving their dens at night or dawn to hunt, patrol their territory, or seek a mate. Hunters often use spotlights or night vision and thermal scopes to detect the fox's glowing eyes reflecting in the dark, a telltale sign of their presence. They may also employ sound lures, mimicking the cries of injured rabbits, baby birds, or fox cubs, sounds that trigger a fox's hunting drive or maternal instinct. Remaining hidden and perfectly still, the hunter waits. When those slender silhouettes emerge and a pair of glowing eyes flicker in the silence of the night, that's the decisive moment, where calmness, precision, and ecological insight converge in a single pull of the trigger. Although less effective, daytime fox hunting is still possible, especially in cold seasons when foxes emerge earlier to forage. The common method is spot and stalk. The hunter follows tracks, droppings, or sounds and closes to an appropriate shooting distance. Camouflage, wind direction, and silent movement are crucial, since foxes have highly sensitive hearing and smell. As a humane alternative to hunting, live traps are used when foxes need to be captured alive for inspection or relocation, rather than being killed. The trap consists of a sturdy metal mesh frame, an automatic drop door, and a spacious compartment to ensure the animal's safety. Hunters usually camouflage the trap with dry leaves and branches, placing bait such as fresh meat or eggs inside. When the fox steps on the trigger plate, the door shuts, keeping it safely contained until checked. Afterward, depending on regulations and conservation purposes, the animal is either released or relocated to a suitable area. In contrast to humane live traps, leg-hold traps were once a common tool for capturing foxes and other wild animals. Their mechanism relies on 2 steel jaws that snap shut when the animal steps on a trigger plate, clamping the leg tightly to prevent escape. Although highly effective and easy to conceal, this type of trap inflicts severe pain and panic on the trapped animal, sometimes causing broken bones or serious injuries. For this reason, many countries today have restricted or completely banned the use of leg-hold traps, promoting more humane alternatives that balance population control with respect for wildlife. In many regions, fox hunting is only allowed with a valid license during the designated season and within specific areas, following humane principles such as prohibiting hunting during pregnancy or when the fox is raising young. At the same time, numerous rescue farms and conservation centers have been established to care for, rehabilitate, and release captured or injured foxes back into the wild. In China and Russia, massive fox farms, housing millions of animals, supply over 70% of the world's fox fur for the global fashion industry. Compared to their wild counterparts, farm-raised foxes are noticeably tamer and less wary. Some even grow friendly toward humans, resembling domesticated dogs more than the swift, cunning predators they once were in nature. Here, the foxes are kept in rows of standard steel cages and fed nutrient-rich diets designed to ensure their fur grows thick, glossy, and vividly colored. Once they reach the ideal size and their coats achieve commercial-grade quality, they are selected for harvesting, providing raw materials for the luxury fur manufacturing industry. The fox fur harvesting process begins with carefully preparing the pelt to keep it clean and smooth. Skilled workers perform meticulous steps to separate and preserve the hide intact, ensuring that the fur remains undamaged. Once this stage is complete, the inner side of the hide is thoroughly cleaned in a process called fleshing, where specialized knives or mechanical tools gently remove any remaining soft tissue. The hide is then stretched over a frame to maintain its flatness and natural shape. Finally, a fine layer of salt or deodorizing solution is applied to absorb moisture and preserve the material, helping the pelt retain its quality before moving on to further processing. After being salted, cleaned, and dried, the pelt enters the tanning stage, where raw hide is transformed into a durable and supple material. Modern tanneries use tanning solutions, often based on chromium salts or natural tannins, soaking the hides for several hours or even days. These agents penetrate deep into the fibers, preventing decay while giving the leather flexibility, elasticity, and strength. The hides are then dried, softened, and gently buffed until the inner surface becomes smooth and even. When tanning is complete, fox pelts are graded by color, hair length, sheen, and overall uniformity. The finest pelts, usually in rare shades such as silver, blue, or white, are reserved for luxury fashion. Artisans cut the pelts according to patterns and sew smaller pieces together into larger panels, hiding the stitches carefully beneath the fur. This requires extreme precision, as even a few millimeters of misalignment can disrupt the natural flow and reduce the garment's value. The finished panels then move on to the shaping process. Skilled tailors use mannequins or molds to form the body, collar, and sleeves. A silk or satin lining is added to enhance comfort and elegance. Finally, details like leather-covered buttons, metal hooks, or concealed ties are attached. Before leaving the workshop, each coat is brushed, inspected, and fitted to ensure flawless drape, structure, and luxury finish. In the United States, farmers are facing off against more than 9 million wild boars, a biological army so massive that if they were to occupy their own territory all at once, they'd need more land than the entire state of Texas just to contain them. But why have we always feared and tried to eliminate this creature? To answer that question, we have to go back to the 1500s. When humans began great transoceanic migrations, bringing with them just a handful of wild boar stock from the Eurasian region to North America, either for meat or recreational hunting. But through a mix of human carelessness and the cunning of this non-native species, some escaped, bred with domestic pigs, and over time evolved into a hybrid force, stronger, more aggressive, and capable of wiping out 3 hectares of corn in under an hour, causing billions in damage. Without natural predators to stop them, wild boars spread like wildfire. In this escalating battle, traps became more than tools. They became the last line of defense, where human intelligence clashes with raw, feral instinct. Ironically, it's the traps themselves that are now backfiring. Placed wrong, timed worse, outsmarted, every time. The result, wild boars aren't just surviving, they're thriving. Because we've overlooked a brutal truth. Wild boars are one of the most reproductively explosive, invasive species on the planet. If we fail to eliminate over 70% of the population each year, their birth rates surge, from 4 to 6 piglets per litter to 8 to 12, with young maturing in just a few months. The population doesn't just grow, it detonates, now exceeding 30 million and spreading across continents. Before we explore the surprising world of wild boar farming, let's first learn how to build the perfect trap. By understanding the behavior of this invasive species and avoiding the critical mistakes so many people still make. Because in this battle, the cost of a single mistake isn't just one failed trap, it could be an entire ecosystem lost. The first and most common mistake in controlling one of today's most dangerous invasive species is designing the corral trap too small, when in fact this initial step demands absolute precision and careful planning. Currently, circular steel frame corral traps are the most widely used strategy in the battle against wild boars. A standard trap typically measures 9 to 12 meters in diameter and stands 1.5 meters tall, spacious enough to capture an entire sounder of 15 to 30 boars in a single drop. If the trap is too small and fails to capture the whole group, even a few escapees can learn to avoid it forever. Next, wild boars are highly intelligent and capable of identifying structural weaknesses in a trap. That's why the entire framework, from steel frame to fencing, must be constructed using high tensile materials, securely welded or bolted in place. The reason is simple. A fully grown wild boar, standing nearly 1 meter tall and weighing up to 200 kilograms, can ram with enough force to bend steel fencing if the trap isn't built strong enough. However, some farmers still use substandard materials such as thin wire mesh, chain link fencing, wooden posts, or even industrial plastic netting to cut costs. The result is not only a failed capture, but worse. We unintentionally teach this invasive species yet another survival lesson, making them increasingly harder to control with each failed attempt. The trap gate is the critical factor that determines success or failure. It must be made of high tensile steel, equipped with a fast and decisive sliding or drop mechanism, and reinforced at the base to prevent it from being forced open. When confined, wild boars may ram the gate edge with their heads in a powerful attempt to escape. Among modern designs, the remote-controlled drop gate is considered the most effective option. Integrated with cameras and sensors, it allows the operator to monitor the herd from a distance and trigger the gate only when the entire group is inside, minimizing the risk of closing too early and capturing only a few individuals. While a sturdy, well-built trap is a necessary condition, the factor that determines up to 60% of success in any wild boar hunt is the trap's placement. This is a step many people tend to overlook, often leading to traps being set in locations far from where wild boars usually roam, rendering the entire effort useless. Wild boars are primarily nocturnal feeders, with peak activity between 8 p.m. and 4 a.m. Therefore, setting traps in areas that show strong nighttime activity is absolutely crucial. Ideal locations include footpaths with visible tracks, disturbed soil, wallowing spots, bedding areas, or pathways connecting dense forest to farmland, common routes used by boars as they stealthily search for food. Once the trap is properly positioned, the next crucial step is to entice the herd to enter voluntarily, without suspicion. This is the purpose of the baiting phase, the critical transition that transforms a lifeless steel structure into a simulated safe zone rich in biological appeal. There are many bait recipes, but the most potent and commonly used ingredients include dried corn, expired milk or sugary soda, beer or yeast, and fruit jelly or gelatin. These are mixed thoroughly and sealed in a plastic barrel or thick bag, then left to ferment for 3 to 5 days in a shaded area or buried under straw to maintain warmth and avoid direct sunlight. This bait not only attracts them from a distance, but also encourages them to linger, digging and foraging, creating the ideal conditions for trap activation. Bait distribution also requires strategy. Begin scattering the bait outside the trap and gradually lead it toward the center, moving the line inward night by night. This progressive approach makes the boars feel naturally guided, not forced, and increasingly comfortable inside the trap. Some trappers even bury the bait in shallow holes, 20 to 30 centimeters deep, instead of spreading it on the surface. The scent from underground not only travels farther and lasts longer, but also encourages rooting behavior, prolonging their stay and reinforcing the illusion of a natural food source. The baiting phase typically lasts from 3 to 7 days, depending on the herd's behavior. During this time, the trap gate remains completely open to allow free entry and exit. At this stage, many might assume it's time to trigger the trap, but in reality, the moment of gate closure is the most critical and also the easiest to get wrong. Closing the trap too early may only capture a few individuals, while the rest escape and become highly alert. Waiting too long, on the other hand, risks the herd relocating their feeding grounds and never returning. That's why every movement of the herd is closely monitored using infrared cameras or motion sensors. When 70 to 90% of the group consistently ventures deep inside the trap, especially across multiple consecutive nights, that's the signal the golden moment has arrived. When the gate slams shut, the trapped wild boars often enter a state of extreme panic. But it's also the moment when the farmer reaps the reward of a well-executed hunting strategy built on patience, planning, and precision. Inside the enclosure, the boars will charge around wildly, slam into the fences, attempt to climb out, or try to tear through the mesh. That's why a post-trap response must be carried out immediately. The capture team needs to be on site as quickly as possible, ideally within 1 to 2 hours. Any delay increases the chance of the remaining boars becoming wary and avoiding the location, while also heightening the distress of the captured animals, potentially leading to injuries or structural damage to the trap if it's not built to withstand such force. Despite its many advantages, the corral trap still comes with several drawbacks that users must carefully consider. First, the initial investment is quite high, potentially 3 to 5 times more than simpler trap types. Corral traps are also bulky, labor-intensive to set up, and their effectiveness often depends heavily on human operation and electronic equipment. In most cases, humane culling is required. However, if conditions allow and food safety is ensured, the outcome of a successful trapping operation can sometimes turn into a free community barbecue, an unexpected reward after a tense and demanding hunt. But while the West struggles to control them, the East is finding ways to profit from millions of wild boars. When given the chance to be cared for and live a fulfilling life, even the wildest creatures can grow gentle, paving the way for a bold new chapter in sustainable agriculture. But to successfully domesticated wild boars, 3 core factors must be addressed simultaneously: wild instincts, living environment, and genetic traits. If even one of these elements is neglected, the domestication process is likely to fail. First, instead of attempting to domesticate wild boars directly, which are notoriously difficult to manage and highly reactive when confined, farms opt to crossbreed wild boars with domestic pigs to create a more stable hybrid. As a result, these hybrids retain the muscular build, thick coat, and rich, distinctive flavor of wild boar meat, but are easier to care for, less likely to damage enclosures, and pose a lower risk of aggression toward handlers. The next key factor is the living environment. In China, wild boar farming is typically organized under a semi-wild model. The animals are raised in large fenced areas spanning thousands of square meters, designed to closely mimic their natural habitat. These active animals are especially fond of wallowing in mud, a behavior encouraged by farmers to help cool their bodies and repel parasites, further supporting their health and reducing stress by preserving natural behaviors. Disease control is approached in a sustainable and animal-friendly way. Rather than relying heavily on antibiotics, farmers prioritize hygiene, daily behavioral observation, and herbal supplements for disease prevention. Each animal is tagged with an ear ID for traceability, growth monitoring, and epidemiological management. After 10 to 12 months, the boars typically reach 60 to 90 kilograms, around a third of the size of a fully grown wild boar in the wild, and are ready for market. The result is an annual supply of around 100,000 tons of firm, flavorful meat, a premium delicacy priced up to 3 times higher than regular pork, increasingly popular in China and across several Asian countries. From a global threat to a sustainable resource, wild boars are forcing us to rethink how we balance control, coexistence, and commerce. One of the most terrifying ecological disasters on the planet didn't come from a great flood or nuclear war, but from 24 rabbits. In 1859, Thomas Austin, an English landowner living in Victoria, Australia, simply wanted to recreate the hunting traditions of his homeland. He released a few dozen European rabbits into the wild, unaware that he had just triggered a ticking biological time bomb. Within just 70 years, the wild rabbit population had exploded into the billions, spreading at a rate of up to 100 kilometers per year. They wiped out native ecosystems, destroyed grasslands, collapsed food chains, and caused soil erosion on an unprecedented scale. Once lush meadows turned into barren wastelands. The Australian government even built a rabbit-proof fence over 200 kilometers long, but it was in vain. Today, despite the use of myxomatosis and RHDV viruses, the feral rabbit population remains around 300 million, making them one of the most successful invasive species in human history. Feral rabbits may look harmless, but they are in fact one of the most destructive invasive species ever recorded on Earth. They don't need sharp claws or deadly fangs to wreak havoc, just ever-growing teeth and a pair of expert digging legs. By devouring young grass, seedlings, and nearly every plant in their path, they strip native vegetation bare, leaving the land exposed and vulnerable to erosion. Their burrowing weakens the soil and causes buildings, roads, and farmlands to collapse in chunks. Even more terrifying is their explosive reproduction. A single pair can produce hundreds of offspring in a year. This fuels unstoppable population booms. And rabbits never come alone. As long as there's grass and no natural predators, they will arrive, multiply, dig, and silently transform fertile landscapes into ecological dead zones. Faced with a tiny creature that spreads like a plague, humans are forced into a silent yet brutal war, where even a single oat becomes a weapon. At dusk, bait-spreading machines roll slowly across the parched fields, leaving behind trails of fragrant oats. At first, it's just clean food, scattered nightly to lull the rabbits' famously sharp instincts. Once they grow used to the path and the familiar scent, the poison takes its place. 1080, or pindone. Ruthless, yet precise. And as darkness cloaks the land one by one, the rabbits fall into the sweet trap laid in silence, marking the beginning of a relentless eradication campaign. Even as rabbit numbers decline, the battle is far from over. Their burrows remain, a tangled network beneath the ground, causing subsidence, damaging infrastructure, and serving as ideal breeding grounds. To eliminate the threat at its root, humans must destroy the burrows, level the land, and erase any chance of resurgence. Using excavators or specialized plows, they slice through tunnels as deep as 0.6 meters, and in some cases over 2.5 meters, to collapse the entire hidden structure. If signs of rabbit activity persist at night, authorities resort to shooting or pumping toxic gas directly into the burrows to ensure complete extermination. When rabbits begin to scatter from destroyed burrow zones, hunting becomes the final method of control. Among the options, hunting with dogs is the most instinctive and effective approach. Breeds like beagles, terriers, and lurchers, known for their speed and sharp sense of smell, are trained to track and flush rabbits out of hiding. In the UK and Australia, this was once a long-standing tradition, where humans and dogs worked as a perfect hunting pair. Today, it's still considered an eco-friendly solution, replacing poison and traps. When a rabbit appears, the hunter has only seconds to react. Strength isn't required, only patience, fast reflexes, and a sharp eye for the terrain. Rabbits can change direction in an instant, often diving into thick underbrush where a clean shot is difficult. A skilled hunter is one who waits, stays calm, and pulls the trigger based on instinct and timing alone. Deep in the forest or along overgrown fields, handmade traps crafted from cardboard boxes and old metal wheels continue to work silently and effectively. To lure rabbits in, people often place tempting bait like carrots, grapes, or longans right at the trap's entrance. Cardboard traps are buried just beneath the surface, fitted with a simple trigger made from bamboo, plastic bottles, and sticks. Just one touch, and the lid snaps shut instantly. However, not all rabbits are a threat. When domesticated and raised under controlled systems, rabbits become a highly valuable livestock animal. Each year, the world produces around 1.2 million tons of rabbit meat, with China accounting for over 40% of global output, followed by France, Italy, and Spain. In these countries, rabbits are raised on modern farms using closed-loop systems, from breeding and care to harvesting, where every stage is optimized through technology. Thanks to this model, a single farm can produce tens of thousands of rabbits annually with exceptionally high survival rates. From a creature once seen as a natural menace, the rabbit has made a remarkable turnaround to become a clean, sustainable food source and a key link in modern agriculture. On modern farms, the breeding process is strictly controlled to ensure genetic quality and reproductive efficiency. Instead of allowing rabbits to mate naturally, artificial insemination is used. Semen is collected from healthy male rabbits and injected into females at the optimal time of ovulation. This method allows for better genetic management, increases conception rates up to 90%, and ensures a more uniform and healthy litter. Female rabbits are pregnant for about 30 days. Before giving birth, they are moved to a designated birthing area, quiet, clean, and lined with straw. Interestingly, even when a nest is prepared, the mother will instinctively pluck fur from her chest and belly to line the nest, creating a natural blanket to keep her hairless newborns warm during their most vulnerable days. Each litter usually consists of 6 to 8 kits. After birth, the young rabbits nurse for around 4 weeks before being weaned. This is a highly sensitive stage. Without proper temperature, humidity, and hygiene, the kits are at high risk of illness. To improve survival rates, many modern farms install sensors to monitor nesting conditions and detect any signs of abnormality as early as possible. The entire farm operates under a closed-loop system, allowing farmers to tightly control environmental factors such as temperature, humidity, lighting, and air quality. From the outside, the rabbit housing is arranged in neat, well-ventilated rows, clean and organized like a modern factory. Inside, instead of group housing, like in traditional methods, each rabbit is kept in an individual cage made of stainless steel or antibacterial plastic, durable and easy to clean. After each production cycle, all cages are cleaned using high-pressure water jets or flame sterilization to eliminate waste, loose fur, and potential pathogens. Along each row, automatic feeders and water dispensers are installed in front of every cage, allowing rabbits to eat and drink without competition or stress. Their diet typically includes nutrient-rich pellets combined with fresh greens, carrots, sweet potatoes, and apples, promoting both fast growth and healthy digestion. Rabbits have a highly sensitive digestive system, requiring a high fiber intake to maintain stable gut function. After around 75 to 90 days of farming, once rabbits reach their ideal weight of 2 to 2.5 kilograms, they are ready to be harvested and sent to the processing plant. Rabbits have one of the shortest grow-out cycles among meat-producing animals, allowing for rapid turnover and efficient space usage. Unlike animals like skunks, which require anesthesia, odor control, and pose a risk of biting, rabbits are gentle, calm, and easy to handle. Workers can simply pick them up by hand or using soft gloves, minimizing stress before slaughter to preserve meat quality. And now let's move on to the part we're most curious about. How are rabbits processed? Once delivered to the plant, rabbits enter a modern slaughter and processing line. They are hung upside down by their hind legs to keep them still, then stunned to prevent pain and reduce muscle spasms, ensuring consistent meat texture. Next, they move to the dehairing machine, which removes the outer fur layer without damaging the skin or flesh underneath. A small cut around the leg or neck, followed by a firm pull, can peel the skin off almost as easily as removing a banana peel. After skinning, internal organs are removed and the carcass is thoroughly cleaned. Finally, the body is divided into cuts like hind legs, loin, and neck, then vacuum sealed to maintain freshness and hygiene before reaching consumers. Are you curious how those cute, gentle rabbits end up being processed into food by humans? Rabbit meat is often grilled to preserve its natural sweetness and tenderness. It's typically marinated with garlic, pepper, olive oil, and herbs like rosemary or thyme, then cooked over charcoal or in an oven. When done, the outer layer turns golden and crispy, while the inside remains juicy and tender. The flavor of rabbit is often described as somewhere between chicken and pork, light yet flavorful, without being overly fatty. This dish is especially popular in Europe, commonly served during spring feasts or traditional festivals. In many Western countries, especially Germany, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia, rabbits are not only livestock animals but also cultural symbols closely associated with Easter, one of the most important holidays in the Christian calendar. The character of the Easter Bunny has become a familiar figure in the minds of millions of children, with the tale of a magical rabbit who hides eggs in the garden for children to find on Easter Sunday morning. The origins of the Easter Bunny can be traced back to 17th century Germany. The early Germans believed that rabbits symbolized new life, spring, and abundant fertility, since a single rabbit can give birth to dozens of offspring each year. Alongside this was the image of the egg, representing rebirth, hope, and light after a long, harsh winter. These two symbols merged to form a unique tradition: a rabbit that brings eggs, an idea that may sound illogical but holds deep meaning in folklore. Many people think kangaroos are cute and gentle animals, until they see a tall, muscular one boxing with a human or locking a hunting dog in a headlock on the grasslands. In reality, kangaroos are quite combative and have a strong territorial instinct, especially during mating season. A fully grown male can reach up to 2 meters in height, weigh over 90 kilograms, with bulging muscles and kicks exceeding 850 psi, strong enough to break a grown man's bones. Kangaroos may be one of the most unique animals in the world, as few species are both national symbols and legally hunted and processed right on the land they represent. But there's a reason for that. With a population of nearly 50 million, twice the number of people in Australia, they are growing out of control. Traveling in herds, feeding heavily, and being active at night, kangaroos compete with livestock for food, break fences, trample crops, and cause damage amounting to billions of dollars. That's why, to control the population and reduce losses, around 1.5 to 2 million kangaroos are hunted annually under government plans. And among them, two of the most valuable things humans extract from kangaroos are: first, the red meat, famous for its rich flavor, natural leanness, and iron and protein content 2 to 3 times higher than beef. Second, the skin, which is highly prized in the luxury fashion industry by renowned brands like Gucci, Prada, and Louis Vuitton. But before becoming a resource for the meat and leather industries, the journey of every kangaroo begins with the most primal instinct: reproduction. Unlike many mammals, kangaroos do not have a fixed breeding season and can mate and give birth year-round. However, their reproductive cycle is heavily influenced by environmental conditions, particularly water and food availability. After heavy rains, when the grasslands turn green again, mating and birthing rates often surge. During mating season, males become even more combative and are always ready to engage in real boxing matches, standing upright on their hind legs, punching with their front limbs, then using their tail as a pivot to launch powerful double kicks with their hind legs. Each match can last several minutes, with blows strong enough to knock down an opponent. The goal of this process is not just to win the right to mate, but also to establish hierarchy and dominance within the group. Only the victor gets access to the females, while the defeated can only watch from the sidelines. Another unique aspect of kangaroo reproduction is that the mother carries her baby for only about 30 to 36 days. At birth, the joey is incredibly small, just 2 to 2.5 centimeters long, weighing less than 1 gram, and resembling a blind little bean. Many people mistakenly believe that kangaroos give birth inside the pouch, but in fact, the joey is born through the birth canal, like in other mammals. However, thanks to an extraordinary survival instinct, it can crawl on its own up to the mother's belly and into the front pouch, a warm, safe shelter, where it continues to grow for several more months. The joey remains in the mother's pouch for 6 to 8 months, a perfect nursery for its development. Even as it becomes fairly large, the mother patiently cares for it with dedication. Only when the young kangaroo becomes strong enough to stand and hop on its own does it begin to leave the safety of the pouch and embark on its journey to explore the outside world, just like a child taking its first steps. Importantly, the decision to leave the pouch is not forced by the mother, but is a natural process that follows the joey's own development. Have you ever seen a baby kangaroo poking its head out from its mother's pouch? But this journey of exploration lasts 18 to 24 months, nearly a third of their natural lifespan, until the joey reaches its ideal size, ready to be used for commercial purposes, from meat harvesting to leather production. To deal with kangaroos is no simple task. Their sharp senses, incredible speed, and unpredictable movements make hunting them one of the most challenging pursuits in the wilds of Australia. The first key to a successful hunt is location. In wild regions with high kangaroo density, licensed hunters in Australia use satellite maps to track the movement routes of kangaroo herds. Next, the golden time for hunting kangaroos is at night. As the daytime heat fades and darkness falls, kangaroos become more active. They leave their shelters to forage, move around more, and become less cautious, making them perfect targets for sudden, unannounced hunts. Unlike controlling wild boars in the United States, using bait traps is ineffective for kangaroos, as they are not easily attracted by food, and such methods can cause inhumane injuries, which are strictly prohibited under Australian government regulations. Instead, hunters use high-powered spotlights and scoped rifles to identify and target kangaroos from a distance, often shooting accurately from up to 150 to 200 meters away. And just like that, 30 to 70 kangaroos are harvested in a single night by each professional hunter, and around 2 million kangaroos disappear from the Australian landscape every year. The hunt is not only a reward for patience, precision, and a deep understanding of animal behavior, but also a legal and scientific method of population control, helping to maintain ecological balance and reduce conflict with humans. The kangaroos are then gathered using large trucks, preparing them for transport, and the next stage of the processing chain. Kangaroo meat is pre-processed on-site to ensure maximum freshness. And here's something you might easily notice. The kangaroo's tail is never left intact. Because the tail serves as a quantifiable proof, each one corresponds to a hunted individual. Hunters are required to cut and submit the tail as a mandatory part of their harvest report, under strict government regulations designed to protect the long-term sustainability of wild kangaroo populations. One detail you might have overlooked is that some mother kangaroos may be accidentally hunted while they are still pregnant or nursing their young. That's why compassionate individuals and animal welfare groups, such as WIRES, Australia's largest wildlife rescue organization, step in to rescue and raise these orphan joeys with care and dedication. Despite rescue efforts, only about 10 to 20% of orphan joeys are found and survive after their mothers are hunted. This also raises questions about the balance between ethics and the exploitation of wild resources. Specialized trucks quickly transport the kangaroo meat to the processing facility. At the receiving area, each kangaroo carcass is hung onto an automated conveyor system, moving them through a series of inspection stations. Workers in protective gear and sanitary gloves perform a preliminary check on each carcass, closely examining the surface to detect any abnormalities or signs of substandard quality. Inside the factory, each kangaroo carcass is hung upside down and moved to the skinning station. Here, workers use specialized knives to separate the skin from the meat with precision and decisiveness. The skinned kangaroo meat remains hanging on hooks and continues along the automated line to the internal inspection area. This stage serves as an intermediate filtering step before the meat is cut and sorted in detail. At this point, workers perform a basic assessment of the meat based on color, texture, and smell to determine its freshness and initial quality. In the portioning area, kangaroo carcasses are laid out on work tables, where dozens of workers carry out cutting, cleaning, and separating various muscle groups. Using specialized knives, they carefully divide cuts such as loin, thigh, shoulder, and ribs while preserving the natural muscle structure. Each step is performed swiftly yet precisely, thanks to the workers' practice skills and the smooth coordination between stages of the production line. Once portioning is complete, Each cut is given a final inspection and neatly arranged into trays according to type and size. Fresh kangaroo meat has a distinct deep red color, firm texture, and is virtually fat-free. After portioning, the meat cuts are placed into specialized plastic bags and passed through a vacuum sealing machine, which extends shelf life and prevents bacterial growth. Each package is clearly labeled with detailed information such as cut type, weight, packaging date, and traceability code.